Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. And after 6 weeks out in Qatar, the showpiece is finally here, the World Cup final. Sadly, England won't be taking part, but it's going to be Argentina and Lionel Messi up against defending world champions France and Kylian Mbappe. I guess it's the final we kind of all wanted based on those semi-finals. I mean, George, would that be a fair thing to say in terms of obviously Morocco and Croatia? Great stories to see those countries get so far, but you almost feel it would have taken away from the spectacle slightly if it had been one of those two countries in the final instead of the Argentina France, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great story, but we've had some disappointing finals in the past, haven't we? With Croatia in the final, I think it was last time where they ended up getting heavily beaten. We've seen it before in other big tournaments where, when they get to the final, it's a bit of a unglamoring spectacle, and you want to see the best players on show for the final. So I think we've got the best situation possible from those semi-finals. I think you're right. Certainly, it all looks aligned for the Messi Mbappe showdown. One of those is going to be lifting the World Cup at the end of it, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that final. Actually, it's going to be an intriguing contest, certainly between those two.
It definitely is. I mean, obviously, in knockout football, the two best teams don't always get to the final. But would you say it was fair to say that these two are probably have been the best two sides of the tournament? I know it didn't start particularly well for Argentina, losing to Saudi Arabia, but since then they've kind of gone from strength to strength. And when you've got Lionel Messi in your side, anything's possible, really.
I know, and I look back and I think that they haven't been particularly great in the tournament, but there's something efficient about them just getting the job done. I think they've almost been quite sluggish at times, but like you said, in knockout football, you don't always have to be the best team. You just have to stay in the game and find a way to win. And when you've got, arguably the greatest player of all time in your team, you need just one moment. He can be missing for 89 minutes and then pop up with, an individual moment of brilliance. We've seen that in this tournament and in tournaments gone by, but he's going to have a second chance, isn't he, after that final, last time out, I mean, what a way it would be, what a story it would be to kind of end his international career of winning the biggest trophy in world football. I mean, it would be quite something, and I would love to see that personally, Argentina come through, but it's not going to be easy. I think a lot of people were underestimated France at the beginning of the tournament, thinking that with all the players missing and to defend the World Cup title was extremely difficult. But I'd say France have probably been the best to look at in terms of their football, and just because it's a great story doesn't always happen that way. So France are not going to be easy to beat by any means.
No, definitely not. Just before we get on to France, just back to Argentina and Messi briefly. Do you almost feel that with Argentina, I almost liken it a little bit to Brazil with Neymar, is that there's perhaps an over-reliance on one player to pull something out the bag, and there's perhaps an over-reliance on, rather than winning the World Cup as a team and rather than winning it for the country, it's like there's a collective, we've got to win this for Messi. We have to do it for Messi rather than doing it for the bigger picture, if that makes sense. Do you almost feel that can sometimes go the opposite way when you're so fixated on one outcome in terms of, wanting to win the World Cup for Messi rather than taking a bit more of a team approach? It's almost like, I mean, I look at Argentina and yes, they're in the final, but I almost feel that they're not really that good a team and they just kind of, they get by because they've got good players, yes, but Messi just makes something happen out of nothing. And that's the difference in these games.
Well, when he's in top form, he is, in my opinion, quite simply unstoppable. I think that's why a lot of people started to shift their opinions on who is the greatest of all time. I think Ronaldo is probably, you would say, the most complete footballer in terms of, all the leagues he's played for and his, ability to score from headers and free kicks and his power. But if you actually look at Messi and how he plays football, I mean, his dribbling alone, it's frightening at times. I mean, you just cannot get near him. And I think there is a reliance, but that's probably looking from the outside looking in. I think as a team, they still do have very good attributes in a way that they play, particularly on the counter-attack with their pace in the front three. I think there are things about them that are very strong. But when you've got one of those players on your side, I mean, even England, as much as we say we're a really good team at the moment, we still don't have that so-called star player of his level at any point. And I think Ronaldo does a similar thing with Portugal, and Mbappe does for France. I think it just, emulates and lifts that side to a whole new dimension where they can go far in tournaments because they've got that player that's just in a world of their own, really.
Do you think Messi needs a World Cup in order to cement his legacy? I know we've like, you know, it's very much clear he's going to go down as probably the greatest player of all time. But when you compare to, say, the likes of Pele, Maradona, which is the obvious comparison, do you feel Messi needs a World Cup, or it would just be an additional extra? It would be a nice kind of cherry on the cake, as it were.
I honestly think him personally, I think he would swap everything in his career he's done now for that World Cup tomorrow. I honestly believe that. I think for him it's so big. But for me, I think after time settled, and if Argentina don't win the World Cup, I think we look back and still decorate him as, you know, the GOAT, if not, you know, one of the best. And I don't think personally he needs a World Cup to get anyone else's gratification on how good of a footballer he is. I just think for him personally, this obviously is his final chance, and I think this will always stick in the memory for good or bad, and it will be something that he'll always regret if he doesn't win this one the second time around, from getting to a final before. But you know, it's so difficult because, like we've just said, you know, you can't win it on your own. You have to. Yes, they're going to need a big performance from Messi if they are to win the World Cup, but. Yeah, for me personally, he doesn't, but I think he would swap anything to win that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are more than just Messi and Mbappe, obviously on the pitch tomorrow. But naturally, the media are going to bill it up as Messi versus Mbappe, and they've been the two standout players this tournament. You know, 6 games each, 5 goals apiece. Messi ahead in the Golden Boot race by courtesy of having 3 assists to Mbappe's 2. So they've been the two standout players this tournament. Messi with a goal every 114 minutes, Mbappe 95 minutes per goal. So, I mean, yeah, these are the standout guys. But, I mean, George, on Mbappe, to go into this final, he's pretty much led the French to the final. I know there's more to it, but he's been their standout player. To have potentially 2 World Cups in the cabinet at 23 is quite some achievement.
Amazing. I looked at another stat earlier that I think when they were both at the age of 22 or whatever, he's won. You know, he scored more goals, won more major tournaments. He's pretty much tipping Messi on every single department at that stage where they were both at that age. So you see what's left to come and how young he is. It's frightening that he could overtake Messi in all of those departments if he carries on the trajectory that he's on. I mean, amazing, because like we've said, we haven't seen a World Cup lifted at all in our lifetime. We haven't even been in a World Cup final in our whole lifetime as England fans, and yet he's on the verge of winning 2.
But it's mad though, isn't it? Because like think how many things need to go right to win a World Cup. You know, it's once every 4 years. The squad's not always the same. You've got to be fit. So many things have got to fall into place, and to kind of be able to potentially be on the cusp of winning 2 in a row at such a young age. Like, you got some for unbelievable players. You even have to just look at Messi and Ronaldo now. Unbelievable careers, no World Cup. And yet at 23 years of age, could have 2. I mean, but in terms of France as a whole, mate, defending world champions, we know it's very difficult to defend the trophy itself. I don't think it's not been done since Brazil won it back-to-back, I think in the 70s. It's very tricky to do, but you look at France and almost look at them, and they've been impressive, but it's almost like they just do enough to win, and they don't do anything more. There's kind of like a ruthless efficiency about this team. It's perhaps not as pleasing on the eye as previous French teams. Perhaps that the team the last time out is slightly different though. You know, no Pogba, no Kante. That midfield's been completely revamped, and Tchouaméni and Rabiot have done a fantastic job in there, and as has Antoine Griezmann, who I think has been one of the players of the tournament, the World Cup. Definitely France's standout player for me, other than Mbappe. I think he makes everything tick. But it's a bit of a different French side, isn't it? They're efficient and ruthless, you'd probably describe them as, rather than sort of pleasing on the eye. I do look at the defence and think it's a little bit vulnerable there. Varane, I think, is a good player, but I look at Upamecano, who's probably going to come back into the side tomorrow, and he looks a bit ragged. It looks like there's a mistake in him.
Yeah, well, they've been in the tournament. They've just been a team of unsung heroes. Yes, the focus has been on Mbappe, and he's had a great tournament. You look at the likes of, you know, Giroud, and, you know, like you were mentioning there, the players who have been so kind of underrated, who have just gone about their business in this tournament. Antoine Griezmann, who's been completely written off, really, struggling to get in the Atletico team. you know, playing a completely different role, and he's relished in that. And so many people were naive to write them off. I mean, I wrote them off. They weren't in. They weren't even in probably my third or fourth favourites to win the tournament. I thought you'd probably have Brazil, Argentina, England, perhaps as your third or fourth team. Portugal, maybe. So France, you know, everyone looked past them. You know, I know they were missing key players. Kante, Benzema. I know Benzema.
Does that make it more impressive then for you, mate? The fact that they've gone into it with no Pogba, no Kante, losing Ballon d'Or winner Karim Benzema, and Christopher Nkunku getting injured in training before the tournament even started. That's 4 key players for the squad. I think that makes it more impressive that they've got so much quality within their squad itself, but to lose that quality of player and still make a World Cup final is quite something. And for someone like Olivier Giroud, who we're both big fans of from his time at Chelsea, you know, to think that he probably wouldn't have played that big a part if Benzema hadn't got injured. He's had a fantastic tournament. He scored 4 goals. He's only 1 behind for the Golden Boot, and at 36 years of age, he looks as good as ever.
And I think it's almost been a blessing in disguise, those injuries, because Didier Deschamps had to think about his team. And I think some of those players who perhaps weren't even going to be in the fold, you know, I think you've just mentioned all those players there that didn't go, they probably would all be playing had they been fit. Now, do France win the World Cup and defend it and get to this stage with pretty much exactly the same team again? I don't know. I think it was almost a blessing in disguise that some of those older players and some of the players that perhaps on the fringes who were desperate to play got their opportunity, and it might have just lifted the spirit and the energy in the team slightly. But yeah, it's incredibly impressive. I know they're blessed they have got a very good team. I mean, you're looking at who's the Arsenal centre back who doesn't even get a look.
Saliba doesn't even get Saliba. Yeah, he's had a great start to the Premier League season. Yeah. Doesn't get a look in at France.
No, so you know they've got quality, but I think that huge credit goes to Didier Deschamps for that one.
I mean, we know finals are traditionally kind of cagey affairs. Teams don't want to go for it too much. They want to stay in the game as much as possible. I know last time out France-Croatia, there was quite a lot of goals, but I would be surprised to see a lot of goals tomorrow. Where do you see this game being won and lost? Is it very much down to France stopping Mbappe, France stopping Messi, and Argentina stopping Mbappe, or is there's probably a lot more to it than that? I guess the midfield battle will be key with the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Paredes, McAllister at Brighton up against Griezmann, Tchouameni, and Rabiot. That's probably going to be where it's won and lost. I do think Argentina are a bit better defensively than France, but going forward, I mean, I don't think there's too much in it. You know, Messi, Mbappe, Giroud. I mean, Alvarez is pretty better than Giroud, but in terms of threats, you know, it's fairly evenly matched all over the pitch. It's probably going to come down. I know it sounds obvious, but who makes the least mistakes?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really close one. They tend to be very cagey anyway. Not many goals. I wouldn't be surprised if they went all the way to penalties or certainly extra time, because both teams will just want to stay in the game. You don't want a situation like Croatia had where they were completely out of it in that semi-final and ended up playing 35 minutes, basically not even in the game. So they'll make sure that come the 90 minutes, someone's still got an opportunity to win that game. Yeah, it's going to be fine margins. It always is in knockout football, especially at the very highest. You can't get a bigger match than the World Cup final. I just hope that we see a game where the two that are under the spotlight really shine. You'd expect a goal from either of them, possibly both. And may the best team win, but I think it's going to be incredibly tight. And I'm really torn as to who's going to win and who I want to win. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really that asked about who wins. I know basically everyone other than French people are going to seem to want Messi to lift the World Cup. I get that, but ultimately for me, I'm not really that bothered. Either
really?
side
Would you really not want to see Messi win the World Cup?
Well, it would be nice, but I mean, it doesn't make a difference to my life. It's not like, oh, that's a great day today. No. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be nice in terms of, you know, the greatest player of all time, arguably, to sort of sign off with that. But I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's that big a deal. It's not going to ruin my day if Messi doesn't win a World Cup. But I think for me, I don't know. I just think the French have got something about them, like a steeliness, a kind of a know-how in tournament football, just to dig in and just, no matter how well or badly they're playing, they just grind results out. I'm going to tip them to go back to back. I'm going to go with a 2-1 France after extra time.
Yeah, my head's saying France because I just think, again, people are again, dismissing them, thinking that the story's set for Messi. But I want to see. There's something about great sportsmen and wanting to see them end their careers on a high, and I want him to finish at the absolute pinnacle. So I'm going to go Argentina on pens.
Oh, God, the final going to pens would be quite something. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What you think the score is going to be? Who's going to lift the World Cup? Is it going to be Messi or Mbappe? Thanks for tuning in. We'll find out tomorrow afternoon who gets their hands on the famous gold trophy. But make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Smash the likes on the video, and we'll catch you again soon.